Welcome to Explainer Insight. Then the zombie genre of TV and movies, there is always a twist to the viral virus that turns people into monsters. The All of Us Are Dead Korean drama by Netflix follows many similar plot elements seen in the genre regarding its heinous virus. The virus evolved and became much more than ever expected as the K-drama progressed. By the finale of All of Us Are Dead, the virus's effect on student-joined Amra Cho Yi-hyun could be the start of a new breed. Let's break down how it all ends, but before that, don't forget to subscribe on Jo's Dad Saves Her. Before we get into the truly depressing stuff, let's talk about action dad Nam Seo-ju, who manages to evade the Korean military and hordes of zombies in order to rescue his daughter, while he may not make it out of the situation alive. Seo-ju shows up just in time to help On Jo and the others escape the gym and the encroaching zombies without his flares and determination. It's unlikely the group would have made it through the tennis courts and onto the mountain. Later, the ribbon Rudy left through the forest leads them to nearby Yangdong and eventually with a strong assist from Namra to safety. Your father, he saved all of us, Harry tells On Jo while they are hiding on the construction site's ledge. I'll never forget it as long as I live. None of us will. Who survives in All of Us Are Dead? Not many people, folks of the high school students we follow from Highest and High the following make it to the quarantine camp. I'm Jo Sehyokda Soo Harry. Me, Jim and Hiring. We pick up with them 4 months after the main events of the series. They are still living in a quarantine camp, as the Korean government has yet to determine the incubation period of the virus and worries they could still be infected. Spread it. Namra survives, but as a Hambi is probably safer within the abandoned city, as the Korean military would most likely kill her on sight. The final scene in the story shows the 16 sneaking out of the camp after curfew to visit the school again, where On Jo had previously seen a fire burning. Once there they meet Namra and have another campfire like they did sans Harry and Meghan, who weren't part of the group at that point when waiting on the rooftop of the school for someone to rescue them. At the time, the group still had some hope that they might be saved. I hope that was eradicated when the Korean soldiers came and left without them. While they don't remember that rooftop experience fondly, they hold on to the shared moment of friendship they had together. Full-time the school. For Namra, who didn't have any friends prior to the zombie apocalypse and who is now living her life more or less on the run. It was one of the only times she felt part of a social group. Of the 170,000 residents of Hysan, 110,000 people make it out alive. The military reports that there were 60,000 casualties in the bombing of Haesum, with 50,000 of those being infected people and 10,000 of those as asymptomatic or not infected. Yusend the firefighter makes it out alive, as does Detective Jake Detective, Seoul University. Our favorite YouTuber, the baby and the little girl. Yeah. Like all good zombie dramas, All of Us Are Dead is using the well-worn tropes of this horror subgenre to ask and examine some very important questions about society with a particular focus on Korean youth. All of Us Are Dead, which is based on a webtoon that was published between 2009 and 2011, is incredibly invested in calling out the intense pressures placed on high school students in Korea, where a good score or not on the College Scholastic Ability Test, CSR, is seen as completely determining one's academic and professional future. Several times throughout the series, Mi Jin compares the zombie apocalypse favorably to the experience of trying to get into college, and I don't think the show is totally joking. Suicide is a major public health issue in Korea, which is the highest suicide rate of any developed country, with suicide having been the #1 cause of death for young people since 2007. On Jo's dad is depicted as the ultimate parent. Not simply because he comes back to save his daughter, but because he has always valued her health and happiness over her test scores and has tried to communicate that to her. She only seems to fully believe him when she sees him on the other side of that door. It's telling that not only does On Jo, a student who is not good at test-taking, survive, but she manages to hold onto her humanity in the process past that, unlike Detective Seoul University, who doesn't know how to feed a baby. Honjo has emotional intelligence, leadership ability and emergency crisis response knowledge that makes her invaluable to her friend group survival. And as soon as a crisis breaks out, the somewhat arbitrary hierarchy of the social order is quickly exposed. Everyone is equal in an accident, so Do tells on Joe before everything goes to hell. Namibian's money doesn't buy her an escape. On the contrary, the lie she's been taught that she is better than a kid on welfare keeps her isolated, turns her into a murderer and ultimately leads to her death. Again and again, this show asks, sometimes explicitly, does society value its young people? For many of the characters, Highest and High was just as bad before the zombie apocalypse. It was probably worse for young Jay, who was failed completely by the adults whose responsibility it was to protect her from bullying. After she turns Hemby, young Jay has the power to protect herself. She, too, abuses it in some horrific ways, but like Wynnum, that abuse is likely driven by the trauma she herself has suffered. It's not an excuse, but it is an explanation, and the show seems to have sympathy even for a monster like Wynnum, who was failed by the social institutions meant to protect him too. I won't ask adults for anything ever again. A severely traumatized John Joe tells the soldier who is questioning her in the quarantine facility in the final episode, summing up one of the show's central themes. While on Joe's dad came back to save her, that was a personal choice rather than an institutional priority. When the soldiers had the chance to rescue the Hyacinth kids from the roof, they didn't. The show doesn't contextualize this as the wrong decision. The military had prioritized saving the many over the few, but it also doesn't begrudge the kids their anger. In the end, these kids saved themselves because they worked together to do so, but they also shouldn't have had to, even for the ones who make it out alive. They are severely traumatized. We are given a small glimmer of light in the relationships they still manage to have with one another. We're all hurting just like you. Harry tells on Joe, who has secluded herself from the rest of the group during their time in the quarantine camp, hoping it will help her forget being alone doesn't make it hurt less. That was all from the video. I hope you liked it. Subscribe for more content like this and hit the like button to help us out. Also, leave a comment if you want us to explain your favorite movie. Until next time, take care.